With movement set up and working to a testable point, remember the legacy input system that we've been using, that, as I've mentioned, is deprecated. The enhanced input is the modern replacement. There's a little bit more upfront setup, but it's significantly more flexible. We get things like hot-swappable control schemes, built-in dead zones, runtime rebinding, all the things that you'd have to code yourself using the legacy system. So let's begin migrating over. The first main difference is the enhanced input system actually has its own set of classes. So navigate back to the blueprints folder, right-click in here or press Ctrl-Shift-N to create a new folder, and we'll call this one Input. Enhanced input splits things into two parts. We have our input actions, which defines what can happen, things like fire, move, restart. And then we have something called input mapping contexts, which define which buttons trigger the previously mentioned actions, providing a separation of concerns. And the reason this separation proves useful, this allows the control schemes to change without needing to rewire the entire gameplay logic. In code, we can simply call the input system to switch between menu controls, gameplay controls, vehicle controls, whatever it may be. They can share the same action mappings to the specific buttons, but they can run under different contexts. One line of code and we have everything switched. Inside of the input folder, we're going to right-click and we're going to go to the input category just here. We can see we have the input action section, so we'll create one of these. Give this the name of IA_fire. We'll select this one, press Ctrl and D to duplicate. We need two more of these, so we'll duplicate this twice and we'll call one IA_move and the other IA_restart. Next, we want to open up our IA_move class. We'll double click to open this, and the main thing we want to look at is just here we have the value type. By default, this is set to digital boolean or bool, and this is very similar to what we set up in the project settings with the action mappings. We need to delete these anyway. We're going to go back into Edit, Project Settings, we'll go down to Input again, and just for context, the digital boolean that either on or off would have been if we created an action mapping here. For example, we could have created something called fire, bound this to a button, and had this firing every time we wanted to call a projectile. Whilst we're in here, I'm going to also get rid of the action mappings, just so that we don't have anything left over. This will also cause a little bit of a bug in our code, but this will make things easy to find and hone in on when we're doing our code update. So we'll just press delete to get rid of our axis mappings as well. Again, that automatically saves. We can close this and go back into the IA_move. Now for both our fire and restart input actions, these both need to be digital booleans, which is why I haven't opened these. They're perfectly fine by default. We're either pressing the fire button or we're not. The same for the restart button. For the movement though, we want to drop this down and we want to use this axis 1D float, essentially providing the same thing as an axis mapping, providing a value from -1 to +1, or 0 if nothing is being pressed. So that's the only change that we need to make inside of our input action. We can press save, we can close this one, and we can go back into our input folder. So now we want to get to our mapping context. This is going to be which buttons trigger which actions. If we right-click in the folder here, we're going to go back into the input section, and this time we'll create an input mapping context. Naming convention is going to be IMC_, and then the name of the thing this will be responsible for. We'll only have one type of input in this more simple project, so I'll call this one main for our main input. Double click to open this and we can see the way it works. Now this kind of is representing the project settings that we were editing earlier. In the top left hand side, we want to click this plus button and drop this down. We need to make each of these entries unique, which is why this is currently being grayed out, so we can't add any more mappings until we have some unique properties in this one. If we drop this down, we can set this to IA_fire, and then if we drop down the category just here, this is where we can begin doing the same type of mapping that we saw earlier. So if I wanted the fire functionality to be called on spacebar, I can press the button here, hit spacebar, and we have one binding. If I also wanted it to react to the left mouse click, I can click here and do the left mouse click. I'll also do the same thing one final time for the gamepad. I'm going to press the button again and press the lower face button, the A button on the gamepad, and we have that bound. So we now have 3 different buttons or 3 different inputs, which can all call the fire function when we get to implementing that. We want to do the same thing again for our other input actions. So we'll press the plus. We want to bind something to the restart. This will be nice and simple, so I'll do this one first. Same thing again, we could have potentially R for restart, and perhaps I'll add one for the gamepad as well, and I'll make this the start button. So that is the special right face button. Just to note, I'm using the left shift and pressing the arrows, and that will collapse everything back up. If you wanted some shortcuts here, hold shift, press left click, and you can see that unfolds every individual element. So a nice quick way to have things either unfolded or collapsed neatly when we're going through these different mappings here. The final mapping that I wanted to create is going to be the movement. So we'll add one more of these. We'll bind this to IA_move. We'll drop this down. And again, we're going to want to add some keys here. If we get started the same way we did previously, we're going to click the button here, press D to have a default right movement, and then click another one, press A to get our left movement. Now this is where things change a little bit, and this is unique to the enhanced input settings. Even though we have these set as a one directional axis, a floating point value for our IA_move, you can see we don't actually have any floating values to change here to invert the A to make things move left. Instead, this is where modifiers come in with the enhanced input system. So if we click on the plus sign on the modifier, we can drop this down and you can see a bunch of useful functionality pre-built in. We can add things like dead zones for analog sticks, automatic scalars and things like that, which can be applied to the input. The one we want is just here, so we want to negate the value. It's going to default to 1. If we negate that, this is what gives us -1. So nice and simple to use, just a slightly different approach. I'm going to do the same thing again, so I'm just going to add 2 more. One for the right arrow, one for the left arrow. We'll add that same modifier onto the left arrow. And then finally, I'm going to add one final input for move, and I'll move the left analog stick again. Now the same thing happens here. We don't need to add a negate here, because Unreal knows that an analog stick has a left and a right potential on the x-axis. It will automatically return -1 when I push this to the left. That's everything set up and ready to go inside of the IMC_move. So we'll hit save and we can close this one. We won't need to edit anything in there again. So this may have looked a little bit tedious. As I've mentioned, it does have a little bit more of an upfront setup, but you only need to set this up once, and these assets can then be copied to other projects very easily if you find you're using similar patterns. And the main thing is that in larger projects, this will begin saving you a lot more time, as it's much more flexible than the legacy input system. Now we want to jump back into our pawn-based class. This is another one I really need you to focus on, because this is the step that everybody often forgets with the enhanced input system. The mapping context exists, but nothing is using it just yet. And unlike the legacy input system, our enhanced input system needs to be explicitly bound to a class. We can do this really easily, and this is the step that everybody quite often forgets to do. From the begin play, we can right-click somewhere near here, and we're going to search for the getPlayerController built-in function. The player controller is what is receiving the input directly from our physical devices, feeding that into Unreal, and deciding how to manage that across the pawn that it may be controlling. This can also apply to AI, so this would be the input that AI is giving to the controlled AI pawn. From the controller, we're going to pull from the pin here, and we're going to search for something called getEnhancedInputLocalPlayer Subsystem. Really snappy name there. We want this one just here with the pink F, so this is indicating this is a function. It's just going to be returning a certain value, which is that enhanced input local player subsystem. And from here, this is the function we really need. We're going to call the add mapping context. Nice and clear, we can see exactly what this will be doing. This will be adding a specific mapping context, the one that we've just created, to be bound to the class that we're currently in. So we'll make sure that we hook these up with the execution pin, drop this down here, the mapping context that we want to use, and we only have the one, we have IMC_main. So the way that you may be using this though, as I've mentioned, is you may have a more advanced specific controller, which is tracking what you might be doing during the playthrough of your game. During gameplay moments, this will be making sure that the mapping context is using the gameplay IMC. And you may have something like a main menu IMC as well, so you can navigate with the keyboard in your main menu. When the player presses pause or escape, the player controller would be responsible for changing the mapping context to go from gameplay to menu. And this is where this becomes really, really flexible. As I've mentioned, a little bit overkill for the kind of project we're creating, but it's useful to know, and you can really build upon this into any of your projects. And the thing I really want to drive home again, this step is critical. I've seen so many people configure everything perfectly. They have all of their input set up, all of the movement functionality would be working correctly. They press play and nothing happens. You spend an hour debugging, and then you finally realize that you forgot to bind the mapping context. So don't be that person. So the final thing we want to do here is replacing the legacy input that we had. If we hit compile, because we've removed the legacy input from the project settings, this is what I meant, that we'll actually get a very useful error or warning down here. It's now telling us that it's trying to reference something which is an unknown axis. If we press this underlined text here, that will actually drop us straight down to where that problem's occurring. So nice and easy. And all we need to do is we'll grab this node that no longer exists in the project settings, press delete, we can right click in here, and we want to search for our IA_move. Same thing, very similar to the legacy input, we get two options. We get the action events, which would create a node like this, where we'll have an execution pin and the float variable, or we can use the axis action here, the action value. The same thing as the axis value we had previously. So we'll select this one. This will give us just the floating point value, and we can plug that back in. So the code itself is pretty much identical. Nothing's really changed. It's just the way that we're going to be setting up the enhanced input to feed that information to us. That makes the transition relatively seamless, and all of our movement logic will stay exactly the same. If we press play, we can test that. So A and D are doing the same thing, left and right, and this is the analog stick again. So all working exactly as we would expect. All we've had to do is upgrade the input layer underneath our core code. And that's it. We now have the enhanced input system in our project, fully set up, which did take a little bit more than the legacy input setup, but it's much more flexible and definitely worthwhile. We'll be using more of the features later, such as the fire events for shooting, triggering held inputs on a loop, and then also the single fire restart button. The next topic we want to address, though, is going to be our gameplay boundaries. Right now, we can fly off into Affinity, which is not really great for any shoot 'em up. And of course, if you wanted to experiment, you can try adding in things like dead zone modifiers for the thumbstick input, see how timers or pulses might work using the built-in functionality. No code required and just something to play around with. And again, if you're following along and finding this useful, I just wanted to remind you, as I mentioned previously, I do have the concept for a full course based on the project you can see in the background. It would be building upon this kind of flexibility. The course would cover things like component-based input systems, showing how we could really expand and flex out the enhanced input system, along with component-based systems for weapons, pickups to make that more flexible, balancing that with inheritance on things like the ships, enemies, and so on. Showing a fully structured and more intermediate level project for people to fully understand the inner workings of the Unreal Engine. If that interests you, you can sign up using the link below. And again, just to reiterate, you'll be added to a mailing list, but you'll only be hearing from me if the course is successful. I'll be providing updates, offering you to early invites and things like that. No spam or generic mailing lists about other things I'm doing. There's a separate link for that if you did want to keep up to date with news on what I'll be releasing on the channel.